is up? This is part 2 of my LeafGreen playthrough. So we're just going to be casually playing Pokemon LeafGreen while discussing the Pokemon franchise in general. Defeated these guys. Done everything in Lavender Town. Now we are moving on. Gonna check my extreme health here. Looks good. I believe, yes, I'm public and live. Perfect. Alright, so just moving along here in LeafGreen. We're just gonna casually play through LeafGreen. We're just gonna casually play through LeafGreen and then do a Nuzlocke on Fire Red, I think. Adjust something real quick. In this underground tunnel, you can actually find items on the ground. You kind of walk through while pressing A. Never have the patience to find anything. I guess you can just use a dowsing machine. Anyways, we'll just sprint through. Still need to pick up a bike. Where is this taking us? We got a bike voucher, I believe from the chairman of the Pokemon fan club for listening to a story. He gave us a bike voucher. It's worth like 1,000,000 Poke dollars. Celadon City, here we are. So this is actually where we want to get another member of our team. This is where we're going to pick up a Dratini. I guess we can just start doing that. So first we have to get the coin case. Let's see. Coin case is in one of these buildings. This guy right here. Lost all his money gambling. It's not the only guy in a Pokemon game to say that and give you the coin case, I'm pretty sure. So now that we have the coin case, you can go into the casino. And on the ground, in this game, there's tons of hidden items. Even in here, hidden coins. So if you just walk around kind of mashing A, people have dropped some coins on the ground here while they're playing slots. And there's a theory. This girl, she says the machines have different odds. Some people say that it's like this machine or this machine have better odds than the rest of them. But I think that's just fan fiction. But yeah, you just kind of walk around and you can pick up like 100 coins or more, I think, in here. And then to get Dratini, I don't know how much it's going to be. So we may have to put a lot of money into it and then gamble for a while to try and get it. gambling here, it's weird. Most of the time with gambling, the house has the better odds, so you'll slowly just lose all your money if you continue to gamble. But in this game, you just slowly gain money if you continue to gamble. It's just an extremely slow... Whoa, there's 40 right there. It's an extremely slow process. Oh, random battle. Yeah, it's an extremely slow process. You just gamble over and over and over. And it doesn't seem like you're going to be up. Like, you slowly lose money until you hit the jackpot and you go up. And then you slowly lose money, lose money, and then you hit the jackpot and you're up again. And so over time, in this game, if you just keep gambling, it's actually a way to make coins. It's just an extremely slow process. But I mean, people are shiny hunting and stuff like that in this game. So if you got patience for that, you can gamble for a while until you have enough for Dratini. That's what we'll end up doing here in a bit. So we can talk to some people, get some coins from them as well. They'll say like, hey kid, here's 10 coins, scram. That's the guy from the gyms apparently. Yeah. After talking to everybody and getting everything from the ground, you should have like, I want to say a few hundred coins. Let's see. $180. Let's see. So we have 65,000. There. How much is a Dratini? Next door. Dratini is 4,600. Let's go see how much we can afford. Yeah, we're just gonna have to gamble for a while. We're not gonna be able to afford that. So I guess let's go and use this machine next to her. Don't remember which one people say it is. I guess let's use this one. Whoa. Okay, did you see the smiley face above that? So since I've been playing on the Switch 2 version of LeafGreen, I'm trying to notice all the differences. I know that they added the Aurora ticket and the Mystic ticket. When you defeat the Elite Four, I think it'll just automatically go in your bag. So that's one difference in these paid $20 ports for the Switch 2. Another difference is obviously when you go to save the game. I don't know if you guys can tell how quickly it just immediately saves the game for you. So those are two differences, I guess, there. I'm just curious if there's anything else that they slightly changed or tweaked. So I'm really paying attention as I play, and I've never noticed a smiley face before when you click on the slot machine. So, all right. So you got a wager. This is pretty much... What is it saying there? I don't get it. You just tap 3 times, go like that over and over. You can see my credits, I'm spending 3 each time. So I'm slowly going down. Got 4 or something. So I'm just slowly losing money, but eventually I'll hit a jackpot of some sort, and then I'll go up, and I'll be above what I was earlier. And I can basically just do this until I have 6,500. Flip. I don't get how that's a payout of any sorts. I thought it was only when you get 3 of the same. I'm scared. So apparently when they released these games, there's a different rating system than there is today, obviously. And so that's how these games were rated E for everyone or whatever, like internationally, because there's different rating laws in different countries as well. But so these games back in the day got away with gambling and slot machines and Pokemon. But today in 2026, they couldn't get away with that. Oh, there we go. But it's only 8 points there. But in 2026, they couldn't get away with putting these games out with gambling in them, and it still having the kid, like, E rating or whatever. But apparently, legally speaking, since it's an old game, the, like, legacy rating is grandfathered in if they release it in the exact state that it was when it came out back in 2004. So apparently that's kind of why they released the games exactly as is. And if they were to change things too much, then they couldn't keep the rating previously, and it would have to get re-rated, and then it would get a higher rating because of the gambling it has. So they were able to add in the Mystic ticket and Aurora ticket. But that's about it, from what it seems like so far, from what I've heard. I think it's because of the gambling right here. But I don't mind. I like these games, how they came out. I enjoy them. There we go. So there's 300. So I started at what, like 12 something credits? You can hold A to make this go faster. What are you looking at? So they have gambling in Ruby and Sapphire too. I think it looks a little bit different, but it's pretty similar. I didn't really play this as a kid. Didn't find it fun, didn't understand it. I think when I got to these parts of the games, like, I would mess around with it for a little bit. But obviously this is kind of boring for a kid. Like, I wouldn't spend extended periods of time gambling. And I also didn't, I think as a kid I didn't realize the odds were actually in your favor if you just did it long enough. I just assumed I was losing money and points for nothing. Also, when I first started playing these games, I mean, I was really little. I could barely read. These games kind of actually taught me how to read. But yeah, it's interesting now playing these as an adult. It's just a kid's game. And it's kind of too kiddish in certain ways. Like boring in certain ways because it's a kid's game. Like the tutorial and the hand-holding aspects. The older games less so, newer games more so. But it's interesting playing these as an adult. And it's kind of just like a relaxing game that you don't have to think much. But as a kid, this was actually like complicated and difficult to figure out for me. I guess now we have the internet and I've played them so many times too. But I mean, man, I don't know if you guys remember before looking things up online or using, if you had a guidebook or strategy, that was good. But a lot of times you just had no idea what was going on in these games, and you'd have to go ask your older sibling or your neighbor, some kid at school, and ask them how to get past a certain part of the game because you're stuck, you're confused. When I first started playing it, like I said, I couldn't read. So I would have to ask my sister like to help me like read the game and talk to NPCs and figure out where to go, what to do. Especially Kanto. Kanto was confusing. Like the part I just kind of went through, where you have to go through the Diglett Cave and Rock Tunnel and use Flash and use Cut. It doesn't really explain to you where to go. That part of Kanto can be confusing. That's the part that I always got stuck on, was where you had to backtrack through the Diglett Cave and find that one bush to use Cut through and go. I remember getting stuck there as a kid. But that was back on actually Red and Blue, on the original Game Boy Color. And I remember going through Rock Tunnel, I believe it is, where you have to use Flash in Red and Blue. And I didn't... You get... I don't know if it's the same in Red and Blue as Fire Red and Leaf Green, but in Fire Red and Leaf Green you get Flash from that Professor Oak's aid in that one building. No, I'll keep playing. But in Red and Blue, I don't know where Flash is. I never got it. I would just go through that cave. On the Game Boy Color, it would just make the screen really dark, so you couldn't see. But if you were to hold it up to a light, you could actually see a little bit. And so what my sister and I would do is get the Game Boy Color and put it like directly under a lamp, like our lamp on our nightstand or whatever, and just play like super close, or like a really bright flashlight or something, and shine it on the Game Boy Color to get through Rock Tunnel. So it was like a physical, like real world way of using Flash to see through the tunnel. But yeah, I was born in '98. These games came out in '96, so it's 30 years old now. On February 27th, Pokemon Day of 2026. Just last week, Friday, these games turned 30. And so, I've actually been around since the beginning though, because I was born in '98. When I was like 4, my neighbors are a bit older, so they were like 90s kids, you know, and they had a Game Boy Color with crystal, like, I think silver, red, and blue. So they gave me the Game Boy Color with like all these Pokemon games, like 4 Pokemon games. They thought they were too old for it and they were done playing Pokemon. So they gave my sister and I their Game Boy Color with all those Pokemon games. Somehow we had 2 Game Boy Colors, so maybe my sister got one at some point. So at 4 or 5 years old, I was playing the OG Red and Blue Crystal and silver and gold. So that's where I started. Generations 1 and 2. I remember playing specifically Red on the Game Boy Color more than... Like, I don't think I ever... We had Silver, I don't think I ever booted it up. We had Crystal, I booted that up, didn't get very far at all. But Red, for some reason, Red seemed cooler to me, which I guess Crystal should have seemed cooler. It was like more advanced, but I guess Red just had Charizard on it or something. I don't know. I played Red a lot more than Crystal. But yeah, I could barely read. Also, it's just like an old game, you know. Graphics weren't great. Game Boy Color didn't have a backlight, that sort of thing. But I definitely played Red. Never beat it. So I was there for Generations 1, Generations 2. I mean, I was kind of there, but not really. More so played Red. Then Generation 3. Christmas of like 2005. I want to say it was 2005. I know these games came out like... Maybe it was 2004. 2004 was Fire Red and Leaf Green. And 2003, I believe, or 2002 was Ruby and Sapphire. I was in either like kindergarten or first grade. And it was Christmas. And my mom got my sister and I a Game Boy Micro. We both got our own Game Boy Micro. I think she got it from Target, like on discount, because the micros weren't selling very well. And she knew that we loved playing these Pokemon games on the Game Boy Color that we already had. And then also like Cartoon Network, you just turn it on in the morning to go to school, before you go to school, like waiting for the bus or whatever, eating your breakfast. Cartoon Network Pokemon anime was playing, so I grew up watching that. And then we also had the trading cards. Like our older cousins and stuff gave us their old trading cards. So I had a bunch of like Wizards of the Coast era, like base set Pokemon cards. I had a bunch of them. We didn't take good care of them. We were like rough with them. Like really played with them, you know. So she knew we liked Pokemon. And so she got us these 2 Game Boy Micros on Christmas. And I remember waking up and going out to the living room, and she had them like set up already with the games in them. And she got Sapphire for myself, and she got Leaf Green for my sister. And so Sapphire was like my first new Pokemon game that was like mine. And I was also a little bit older, like kindergarten or first grade. I was like, I could read at that point, I'm pretty sure. And that was the first Pokemon game that I beat. It was Sapphire. I put so many hours into it. Probably not that many, like looking back as an adult, but as a kid it felt like I'd played that game so much. And yeah, I just remember playing that game a lot. So much to the extent that when I was at school, I could hear the theme music in the background of my head. Not the theme, but just like, you know, like a random town or route or the surfing theme. Just like background noise in my head while I was at school. That's how much I played that game. And I remember specifically that first playthrough I had of that game, Pokemon Sapphire. I chose Mudkip, and I did the classic little kid thing where I used Swampert like the entire game, and he was like my just one Pokemon that I used pretty much. I had a team. The other guys just weren't strong though, because I just used the strong guy, which was my starter. So he was level 100 before, like at the 8th gym, he was like level 100. I just used him only, pretty much. But yeah, I had that Swampert, and then I beat the game, and I remember when I was in the like Victory Road, getting up to the Elite Four, it just feeling like such a momentous occasion. I thought like I had actually accomplished something like difficult, or that like a lot of people didn't do. I didn't think of it as like, oh, you're just playing for the game, you're beating it. I thought it was like an achievement. I remember telling my mom like, oh my god, I'm about to beat the game. But so Pokemon Sapphire holds a special place in my heart, and always will. Pokemon in general, this is just nostalgic for me. I mean, I don't know, if I didn't grow up playing it, I don't think I could enjoy the franchise as an adult. I love it, and there's a lot of things about it that align with me, and there's a lot of reasons why I like it. But I think one of the main ones for sure is nostalgia. I don't know that I would like it if it weren't for nostalgia. But the other reasons, obviously, I mean, I love animals. Like learning about the world and different animals and stuff. A lot of people that are, you know, into like animals or dinosaurs, ecology or just nature. Those kinds of people typically are into Pokemon as well. That's kind of how the franchise started, you know. It was about catching local critters and bugs and stuff around your neighborhood. And I actually grew up doing that too. I mean, I grew up on military bases and running wild, catching caterpillars and lizards and stuff. So yeah, Generation 3, that's kind of like, I was here from the beginning with Pokemon, but Generation 3 is really where I was smart enough to read the games and beat the game for the first time. So it really feels like my journey with Pokemon started at Generation 3 for me. So Sapphire is definitely my favorite game. Most nostalgic. And so we had Sapphire and LeafGreen. My sister loved LeafGreen so much that she saved up her money and bought Fire Red. So she had both LeafGreen and Fire Red, and then I just had Sapphire. And then Generations 4, Diamond and Pearl came out. We both got DS Lights, and she got Pearl and I got Diamond. We played those. Loved Generation 4. Platinum came out. I can't remember, I think Heart Gold and Soul Silver came out and then Platinum. Or no, it was Platinum and then Heart Gold, Soul Silver. But they played a lot of Platinum, loved that one. Put a lot of hours into that. I remember I had like level 100 Pokemon, and in Platinum you could, there's like that resort or like some island where you had your own house. I don't know, do you guys remember that? You could customize your own home, and it cost a bunch of money and a bunch of time. It was like really grindy. There's the Grand Underground and stuff. Remember, one of the things I loved about Pokemon was the social aspects, playing with, you know, kids in your neighborhood, trading, battling, playing on the bus. I always had the guidebooks growing up to help get through the game. I loved just like the Pokedex sections, just reading about each Pokemon, learning everything about them. And then Generation 5, Black and White came out. Well, I guess no. So after Platinum, it was Heart Gold, Soul Silver. Saved up my money, pre-ordered. We both pre-ordered. So I pre-ordered Soul Silver. My sister pre-ordered Heart Gold, and we got those like big boxes from GameStop that came with the Pokewalker, the game, and then the statue. And then my sister didn't want her statue; she just gave it to me. And then I just like played with them for a little bit, and then I think we just like threw them away or gave them away. And I think those statues are worth something these days. But do y'all remember that, the little Ho-Oh or Lugia figurine statue thing that came with those box sets? And then the Pokewalker, of course, that was sick. Getting to take your Pokemon with you. And Black and White. I was still into it. I was getting older at that point. I think I was like 13, 14, Black and White came out. And that was kind of the last one that I really like was into as a little kid, like running around the neighborhood playing with everybody else. Love those games. The story, oh my god. I think Black and White's like, for me, 3, 5, and 9 are my favorite generations, but definitely 3 and 5. 3 and 5 are the best generations. Black and White, loved them. Loved the story. Loved the new like animations, the 2D art can move now, that sort of thing. And then Black and White 2, everybody goes through their era where they are too cool for Pokemon. They grow out of it and they want to be more mature or adult or cool. And back in the day, these days Pokemon's cool. So maybe kids, younger people don't understand kind of what I'm talking about here. But back in the day, you were not cool for liking Pokemon. You were picked on, it was nerdy, you hid it, you kept it to yourself. And then everybody kind of went through a phase where they realized like they're getting older, they wanted to like stop playing it or like whatever. And for me, that period was Black and White 2. So I actually didn't play those games on release. This is the first, like the only Pokemon game I didn't play on release. I've played them now, I own them, but I didn't play those games until much later after release. That was just my phase where I got into skateboarding. I was a skater. I was too cool for Pokemon at that time. And then Generation 6, it was the big 3D game. Generation 6 felt like a big deal when it came out, X and Y. I remember growing up, I was really into Rooster Teeth and the podcast and everything. Red vs. Blue, Achievement Hunter, Let's Play. And I remember even like the people at Rooster Teeth, the adults, were like playing X and Y, so it felt like a big deal. I think X and Y sold well. But I remember Generation 5 was not popular, and it didn't sell well, and it was kind of like considered a failure, maybe, by sales. But at the time, people were hating on, kind of like the older Gen 1 guys, Gen 1ers were hating on Generation 5 for the Pokemon designs, and the fact that you couldn't, like in Black and White, you couldn't use old favorites. You could only use the Unova Pokemon in Black and White, and that was extremely unpopular, but they fixed that in Black and White too. But, so it was kind of like a decline in the social status of Pokemon, like globally and in the US during Generation 5. And then Generation 6, it felt like a big deal. It came back out. And so even though like I thought I was too cool or whatever, I was a little bit older, but I was like, okay, I gotta play these new 3D games. Pokemon 3D, that's sick. It's like, what I guess at that time I was like, this is what we've always been wanting, you know, the game to kind of look like the anime. So I bought a 2DS. It was the cheapest way I could play the new X and Y games, but I loved the 2DS. 2DS is sick. It's like a flat little doorstop wedge design. It's better than the 3DS. It's like bigger, like I have big hands, so like it's more comfortable. 2DS was sick. And then also, at that time, you could, for the gaming industry, this was kind of, Nintendo was ahead of the game. You could buy digital downloads of games from the eShop. Like, I think PlayStation and Xbox were just getting into that, and most major games you couldn't do that. At that time, you still had to go to GameStop to get games in person. And so, yeah, it was like, I think I went and bought the 2DS GameStop in person, and then went home and bought Y actually, for the 2DS on the eShop, downloaded it. And each Pokemon game, when I play them for the first time, I'm such a big Pokemon fan, I'm gonna enjoy it the first time. Like, that's just what it is with me. Some people call it recency bias, I guess. But that initial playthrough, I'll probably like the game no matter what. But then kind of, after I've had some time to digest it and think about it, some of these games become like, you know, not so much my favorite. Alright, so we started with 1200, we're already at 2431. We're trying to get to 6,500 for Dratini. What was I talking about? Oh, okay, so Generation 6, I enjoyed it on the initial playthrough, X and Y, but I still kind of knew this was not as good to me. And I know a lot of other people enjoyed it, especially at the time. It was like, it was popular. But to me, I was like, it felt little kiddish, it felt hand-holdy. I didn't like, it felt like the tutorials were too long. I didn't like the XP share. My first playthrough, I was like over-leveled the whole way through, and then that was everybody's first experience with the new EXP share. So, me personally experiencing that for the first time, I remember thinking the whole game, like, okay, clearly they gave me this option to turn the XP share on and be this overleveled for a reason, and I was scared to turn it off, even though the whole game I felt overleveled. I was like, at the end, the champion's gonna be crazy hard, or the Elite Four is gonna be crazy hard, and that's why they're giving you so much EXP and helping you level up like that. So I left it on the whole game, and then like each Elite Four member being disappointed, like as I crushed them. And then like Diantha at the end too, like just such a weak champion for me, because I had the XP share on, and obviously they wanted the game to be more catered towards kids and like widespread audience, and it did well because of that, and it performed well, it sold well. But personally, I didn't enjoy the game, and I think looking back, a lot more people are giving giving Black and White their flowers. You know, Black 2, White 2, Black and White, Generation 5. People are looking back in retrospective, giving those games in that era their flowers. Overhated at the time, and now it's underrated. But I think a lot of the internet's coming around. People are realizing how good those games were. And I think that Game Freak really like took a chance with those games, and it was like, the way they described it was I don't know, it was like a love letter to Pokemon. They put a lot of effort into it, and it was like their dream game and like all this stuff like that, and then it turned out to kind of backfire, I guess, and not perform well. And so I think internally within Game Freak after that, I would imagine the business side of things, the business people were like, alright, you guys can't make your dream game and have that much like artistic or creative authority. Like, we gotta go back to like what sells, and then the next 3 generations paid for that. So yeah, Generation 6, it felt just like soulless a little bit to me. I don't know how, like the route, it was ambitious, but they were figuring out how to transition from pixel art, like 2D to 3D on this new engine. Like, I guess every new console that came out, they would have to figure out a new engine or whatever, but I guess everybody says it felt like Generation 5, they mastered like the 2D games, and they Game Freak is just at that time was known for Generation 5 like making really good quality games. And then Generation 6, I guess the graphics like aren't too bad like for the 3DS, and like at the time was the first 3D game and all that. The Pokemon models though, like it was the first 3D Pokemon models, like what'd you expect? But it's like, I remember some of them kind of looking off. Or just too basic or generic, I don't know how to explain it. And then Generation 7, Alola. I remember after Generation 6, I was thinking maybe the reason I didn't enjoy these games is because it's too much more of the same. Like, okay, we have 6 generations of the exact same formula of defeating the gym leaders, becoming the champion, catching them all. And so I think of that, after Generation 6, I was actually feeling like, okay, they need to switch it up a little bit. I want something different. And I'm always just happy when new Pokemon games are coming out. Like, as long as they're still making these games, I'm gonna be happy. So I always feel like it's a privilege that a new game is coming out. But Generation 7, Alola, yeah, my initial impressions was the fact that I was impressed and happy with them making like daring, risky changes, and that those changes were the kahunas and the trials. Instead of gyms, it was like a new cool thing where you like did these challenges and stuff. I haven't played the game. I've not played those games in forever. I think I've played them like twice ever. But my initial impressions for those games was I enjoyed the change of pace. I think I also felt over-leveled, but maybe not as much. But it felt... Also, I had lived in Hawaii previously. My dad was stationed there. He was in the Navy. So Alola is like cool to me because I have personal experience with Hawaii. And I feel like they really nailed the kind of vibe and culture and feel of Alola, or of Hawaii rather. So personally, I really enjoyed that game, especially the initial run-through. Second run-through, I think it was pretty fun as well. But then Ultra Sun and Moon, I remember being really disappointed. Like, they are definitively the better version of Alola, Ultra Sun and Moon. But I remember being disappointed in, like, spending money on those games and them being so much the same. It was, like, barely like a DLC, right? I don't know, I would have to look back. I'm not super familiar with Alola and the differences between Ultra Sun and Moon and regular Sun and Moon. But I remember at the time feeling like it was like the exact same game until the very end, and then there's like a DLC plot. And they came out like 1 year after the next. And so I was like, alright, I just played this game and I'm doing the exact same thing. And it was like boring to me. And then Generation 8, Sword and Shield. So I guess first it was like Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee. I actually bought a Switch to play those, and I had for some reason thought like this was the main line, like next big Pokemon game. And then I played Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee, and it was alright. I mean, like I said, I enjoy every first run through of a game. I liked Pokemon Go. But I mean, they were alright, just Kanto games, remakes. But at that time, my first playthrough, I liked the fact that it was something different with a catching mechanic. So I was like, okay, I'm happy they're still making Pokemon games, and it's a little bit different too. But I was also worried at the time that they weren't going to continue to make Pokemon games, or perhaps not in the same style that they used to. But then Sword and Shield came out, that's the mainline next generation games. Generation 8. And of all the Pokemon games, I think Sword and Shield I was the most disappointed on my first playthrough. It just seemed like a step back. I don't know, like the wild areas, the 3D environments, I wish the whole game was like that, because they really nailed those wild areas. but they were trying to transition from like 3D open world with routes, and with you know, like your character being able to move around and stuff, but then in the wild areas you had free cam, like you could control your camera. And I don't know, Sword and Shield just didn't resonate with me. Didn't enjoy it. Obviously that famous intro, like, cutscene where there's no voice acting, I remember being, like, thinking that I needed voice acting at that time. Things I enjoyed about Sword and Shield, like the quality of life improvements, like competitive, the DLC was good, the story was alright. I know people, it's like a meme to play Pokemon for the story, but I actually like a lot of the stories in the Pokemon games, and I do play Pokemon for the story. But Sword and Shield didn't resonate so much with me. I really enjoyed the gimmick Dynamax, and like the gym battles and the Dynamax battles felt huge, like felt really cool. And the music, like when they start chanting like it's a soccer stadium, that was sick. Leon was a good champion. But let's see. So after Sword and Shield, Arceus was next, right? Now Arceus, I think, is like my favorite Pokemon game of all time. Especially, I mean, just counting the initial playthrough of a game, of all my experiences, like the initial playthrough of a Pokemon game, Arceus was the best, like, initial experience. I've only played Arceus once, actually. I've tried replaying it, couldn't finish it again. But my first experience with Legends Arceus, just playing through it completely when it came out, was so good, like amazing. Best Pokemon game. They just really nailed it. They nailed it. I mean, it was a passion project. And I just love the direction that they went with that game. What I think I liked about that game the most, looking back on it right now in 2026, as we prepare for Gen 10 and just finished with ZA, I'm thinking back, what is the difference between ZA and Arceus for me personally? I think probably a lot of people. It's the gameplay, the mechanics. A video game should be fun to play as a video game. A video game should feel like a video game. The mechanics and the gameplay loop, like physically controlling the game and your character and interacting with the world, should feel fun and engaging and immersive. And Arceus, of all the Pokemon games, did that the most, for sure. It was like a FPS throwing those Pokeballs. It legitimately required skill, and there was a skill curve to it. Not only this, it was like a combination of stealth, like stealth games, with a FPS. So, I mean, it was sick. It was like the gameplay loop of getting materials, crafting your balls, trying to get the jet ball to like snipe Pokemon from a distance, and throwing like smoke bombs and stuff to like conceal yourself and sneak behind rocks. And the way you could be behind objects in the environment and like be in tall grass and stuff like that was so intuitive and really well thought out and worked perfectly. Like, it's one of those games where it's like, I think I could do this and use my environment in this way, let me try that, and then it actually works, kind of like Zelda, like Breath of the Wild. And so I know Nintendo or Game Freak is inspired by I know Game Freak is inspired by the people who make Zelda And I think Arceus had a lot of that inspiration in it, and you can tell just by the character, the way they sound when they move around and stuff like that. Even ZA as well. So I think the team specific, I would say, here's my theory. Because the characters in the Legends games, like you, the character, the main character, when you move around and do certain, like when you do your roll and tuck animation or stuff like that, you make sounds that like Link makes. And to me, that's like an Easter egg or a hint, or a nod or an ode to the Legends, not Legends, the Zelda games. And I think that's direct evidence. I guess not direct evidence, but it's like you could see that the team that's making the Legends games is inspired by Breath of the Wild. And I think, I mean, the whole gaming industry is probably inspired by Breath of the Wild. So it'd be really cool to see more of that in future Legends games. ZA, I don't know the numbers yet. I would imagine it's not selling great. And then how it's going to stand within the community and like be looked at, like talked about in retrospect, I don't think ZA is going to hold up. I really don't, unfortunately. I was a huge ZA supporter, like huge ZA supporter until I like beat the game, and I was like, man. I mean, it was good. It was all right. But anyways, that's gonna be it for tonight. I'm gonna keep having these streams where I'm just casually playing through LeafGreen. So yeah, we just got to Celadon City. We have 4 of our team members. Wagyu, Kimchi, Tempura, Jalapeno. They're all my Pokemon are gonna be food nicknamed in this playthrough. This is my team so far. We got 2 more spots left. I already know who they're gonna be. One of them's Dragonite. So right now we're trying to get that Dratini in the game corner. And yeah, we'll keep streaming. Just a casual playthrough of LeafGreen, and then I'm also going to stream Fire Red and do a Nuzlocke, and then when Pokopia comes out on Thursday next week, I'll stream that as well. So thank you guys for watching, and subscribe for more Pokemon content on this channel. And yeah, thank you for watching.